The stars looked different when you thought you might never see them again. Ilya's ward leaned against the cracked viewport, listening to the steady hum of the alien ship's engines. He was 36, tired in ways that went deeper than his bones and carrying scars both seen and unseen. Once he had been a soldier, then a mechanic. Now something in between, living among strangers who were no longer strangers. Below him, through the glass, the alien city of Avier shimmered in twilight. Towers of translucent crystal glowed faint blue, as if lit from within by trapped starlight. Gardens floated on platforms of living stone, each one suspended by humming energy fields. To human eyes it looked impossible, a dream sculpted into reality. To the avians who built it, this was simply home. And home was about to burn. The Voran Empire was coming. Everyone knew it. Everyone felt it. You could hear it in the nervous way the Lipari twitched their long ears in the corridors. You could see it in the dimming glow of the Sylvani, the tree-like beings who swayed when they were afraid. And Ilya's human outsider could taste it in the air like copper on his tongue. The calm before fire, the silence before screaming. Ilya's. The soft musical voice pulled him from his thoughts. Lyra and Aviante stood in the doorway. Her feathers were a deep indigo, tipped with silver. Her large, intelligent eyes reflected light like pools of water. She had been his closest friend since he stumbled into this alliance 2 years ago, a wandering human with nothing left to lose. "They're calling the council together," she said, her wings twitched with nerves. "Elder Zephas will speak, he wants you there." Ilias blinked. "Me, I'm not one of you." "You've lived with us, worked with us, fought beside us." Lyra tilted her head, feathers rustling. "That makes you one of us more than you realize." He wanted to argue, but the truth was simpler. He didn't have anywhere else to be. The council chamber was vast, with transparent walls that looked out into the open sky. 12 species filled the space, gathered around a central platform where Elder Zephas stood. His plumage, once bright, was dulled with age, and his voice trembled with weight as he spoke. "To all of you," Zephas began, "I bring grave news. The Voran fleet crossed into our outer colonies 3 days ago. They have burned 3 worlds already. Their scouts are less than a week from here." A low murmur rippled across the chamber. The Lipori huddled together, twitching nervously. The Sylvani swayed, leaves rustling like anxious whispers. Even the iron-scaled Durocs shifted uneasily, their claws tapping stone. Zephas lifted a feathered hand. "We are a people of peace. For 8 centuries we have lived in harmony with our neighbors. We have shared music, art, stories. But the Vorans will not be swayed by song. They will come to conquer, to enslave, to erase." Ilias felt the air tighten. He had seen it before, different flags, different empires, but always the same cruelty, the strong taking from the weak. Zephas's eyes swept across the chamber. "We will send one last transmission, a plea for aid to the galaxy. If anyone believes peace is worth defending, perhaps they will answer." "And if they do," one of the Durocs rumbled. "Then we will die," Zephas said simply. The words fell like a stone in water, rippling through every heart present. Ilias clenched his fists. He had seen too many good people die while the galaxy looked away. He had sworn he wouldn't get involved again, but something inside him, something stubborn and human, refused to stay silent. "You can't just sit here and wait for them," he said aloud. His voice carried farther than he intended. Dozens of alien eyes turned to him. "If you want a chance to survive, you have to fight, not tomorrow, not next week. Now." Lyra shot him a sharp look. "Ilias." But Zephas only studied him quietly. "You speak of war, human. Is that all your species knows?" Ilias hesitated. He saw again the ruins of cities, the faces of soldiers who never came home. War had taken everything from him, but it had also taught him something important. "No," he said finally. "Not just war, survival. When the storm comes, you don't close your eyes and hope it passes. You dig in, you prepare, you fight back, or you get swept away." Silence, then slowly Zephas nodded. "Perhaps," the elder said softly, "we need the wisdom of survivors." That night, Ilias stood on the balcony overlooking the evacuation docks. Ships rose into the sky like silver birds, carrying civilians to safety. The air was thick with the scent of burning fuel, the cries of children, the desperate rhythm of departure. Lyra stood beside him, feathers catching the moonlight. "Do you really think anyone will answer the call?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, fragile. Ilias thought of Earth, far away, forgotten, still recovering from its own scars. He thought of the Council of Great Powers, all too careful, too cautious. He thought of how easy it was for the galaxy to look away. No, he admitted, but sometimes one ship is enough, one crew, one person willing to stand up when no one else will. Lyra studied him. You mean you? He shrugged. I've been running long enough, maybe it's time to stop. Before she could answer, the sky lit up with streaks of fire. Ilias froze too soon. They weren't supposed to be here yet. The first Voran scout ships pierced the upper atmosphere, their hulls gleaming like knives in the starlight. Sirens wailed across the city. Voices shouted in panic. Lyra's feathers flared wide. They're here now. Ilias grabbed her hand and pulled her back inside as explosions rippled across the distant skyline. The Vorans had arrived early, and they weren't sending warnings. They were sending a message. In the command chamber, chaos reigned. Officers of every species shouted over one another. Tactical displays flickered with incoming threats. The first wave of Voran ships had bypassed the orbital defenses entirely, striking directly at civilian evacuation zones. They're targeting the transports, a Sylvani cried, its leaves thrashing violently. Get them to safety, Zephas commanded. But the Voran ships were too fast, too ruthless. Ilias slammed his hand against the console. Damn it, they're going to slaughter unarmed civilians. He looked around, saw the fear in every face, and something in him snapped. Give me a ship, he said. Zephas turned to him, startled. What? Any fighter, any scrap that flies, I'll hold them off. You can't fight them alone. Ilias met his eyes, steady and unyielding. Watch me. The chamber fell silent. And then slowly Lyra stepped forward. Her feathers trembled, but her voice did not. I'll go with him. The room erupted in protests. Impossible. She'll be killed. She's a singer, not a soldier. But Ilias only looked at her, a spark of fierce pride in his tired eyes. You sure about this? He asked. Lyra nodded. My people sing of harmony, but sometimes harmony needs defenders. For a heartbeat, their eyes locked. Human and Aviante, predator and songbird, survivors both. Then another explosion shook the city. The Vorans were closing in. Zephas's voice cut through the din. Very well, take ship number 12 in the lower hangar, and may the stars remember you. Ilias didn't hesitate. He turned, running for the hangar with Lyra at his side. Above them, Voran fire rained down, and the peaceful world of Avier began to die. The hangar shook as another blast rocked the city above. Shards of crystal rained down from the ceiling, sparking against the deck. Mechanics and soldiers scattered in panic, their voices drowned by the roar of incoming fire. Ilias shoved Lyra into the cockpit of ship number 12. The fighter was old, patched together with mismatched plates, its hull streaked with burn marks. It looked like junk, but it was their only chance. Strap in, Ilias barked, climbing into the pilot's seat. His hands flew across unfamiliar controls. Alien symbols glowed on the console, but 2 years of tinkering with avian tech gave him enough to improvise. Lyra's feathers flared in panic as the canopy sealed shut. You've flown one of these before, right? Something like it, Ilias muttered. Something like it. The engines whined to life with a cough that shook the frame. Ilias grinned despite himself. Close enough. With a roar, the fighter leapt from the hangar into the night sky. The view outside was chaos. Dozens of Voran craft sliced through the clouds, sleek and angular, their weapons glowing with murderous light. Below, the evacuation docks burned. Transports overloaded with civilians tried desperately to lift off, only to be cut down midair. Fireballs streaked across the horizon as ships fell like dying stars. Ilias' jaw tightened. Bastards. A Voran interceptor peeled off from the formation, locking onto their battered fighter. They've seen us, Lyra warned. Good, Ilias growled. He yanked the stick, throwing the ship into a dive. The enemy's plasma bolts seared past them, close enough to rattle the hull. Ilias twisted hard, engines screaming, pulling maneuvers that no Aviante pilot would dare attempt. G-forces slammed Lyra against her seat, her wings pinned by the straps. Humans are insane, she gasped. Welcome to the club. He rolled the fighter, diving beneath the transport lanes. The Voran gave chase, claws toying with prey. But Ilias had grown up on a world where storms tore cities apart and predators stalked every shadow. He knew how to dance with death. The fighter shot upward suddenly, skimming so close to a transport's hull that Lyra cried out. The Voran followed and slammed into the transport's energy field, its ship shattering in a burst of fire. Ilias whooped, "That's one." Lyra stared at him, breathless. You tricked it into the shield." "That's called fighting dirty," Ilias said. His grin faded as new contacts filled the radar. "But there's plenty more where that came from." The next minutes blurred into chaos. Ilias flew like a man possessed, weaving through burning towers, skimming along floating gardens, using every scrap of cover to throw off pursuers. Plasma blasts turned night to day, searing holes in Avier's beauty. Lyra sang coordinates, guiding him toward transports under attack. Her voice, soft but steady, became his lifeline. Twice her warnings saved them from ambushes. Together, they downed 3 more Voran ships, 2 by baiting them into crashing, 1 by sheer luck when Ilias dumped the last of their missiles into a cruiser's vulnerable flank. But it wasn't enough. For every Voran that fell, 5 more took its place. Then the shadow fell over them. Lyra gasped, "Ilias, look." He looked and saw the lead vessel of the Voran fleet rising through the clouds. It was enormous, a predator given form, black metal scales gleaming with reflected fire. Its silhouette dwarfed the city below, the Eternal Dominion. Ilias' blood ran cold. "That's no scout," he whispered. The Dominion's main gun charged, a sphere of crimson energy swelling like a dying sun. Its target, the heart of Avier. Lyra's feathers trembled violently. If it fires, there will be nothing left. Ilias' instinct screamed at him. They couldn't run, they couldn't hide. "Then we don't let it fire." He dove toward the behemoth, weaving through its escort ships. Plasma bolts rained down. One clipped their wing, sending alarms shrieking. Lyra gripped the console. "You're insane." "Been told that before." The closer they flew, the worse it became. The Dominion wasn't just a ship, it was a fortress. Gun turrets studded its hull, vomiting fire in every direction. Its shields rippled like liquid glass, absorbing blow after blow. Ilias gritted his teeth. His fighter was a toy against a monster, but he wasn't aiming to destroy it. He was aiming to distract it. "Lyra, patch me into their comms." Her eyes widened. Why?" "Just do it." She hesitated, then her wings fluttered as she sang the sequence. A channel opened. Static hissed, then cleared. And a voice filled the cockpit. It was deep, gravelly, like metal grinding against stone. "Unidentified vessel, you dare approach the Eternal Dominion." Ilias forced a smirk into his voice. "Yeah, thought I'd say hello." A pause, then cruel laughter. "A human, we have heard whispers of your kind, Deathworld spawn, predators in weak flesh." Ilias' hands tightened on the controls. "Funny thing about predators, we don't scare easy." "You will," the Voran commander hissed, "when your bones float among the ashes." The channel cut. The Dominion's main gun swelled brighter, energy coiling like a storm about to break. Lyra's feathers flattened in terror. "Ilias, it's charging." He yanked the fighter into a dive, aiming straight for the weapon's glowing heart. If he could hit it at the right angle, maybe, just maybe, he could overload the charge. "Hold on," he shouted. They plunged through a hurricane of fire. Shields flared, systems screamed, but somehow the fighter held together. The Dominion loomed larger, its weapon blinding. And then a plasma bolt struck their rear engine. The fighter spun wildly, alarms blaring. Engine gone, Ilias cursed, fighting the controls. The Dominion's weapon reached full charge. The city below had seconds left. Lyra's eyes brimmed with tears. "Ilias, what do we do?" The cockpit filled with red light. The world slowed. And Ilias realized the truth. They couldn't stop it, not alone. He opened his mouth to answer, when another voice cut through the comms. "Human, unknown human fighter, do you copy?" Ilias froze. That voice was human. Lyra gasped, "Did you hear that?" He swallowed hard. "Yeah." The voice repeated, urgent. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earthbound. Hold your position, we've got your back." Through the smoke and fire, Ilias saw them. Ships dropping from faster-than-light travel, blunt-nosed, heavy-armored, bristling with weapons. Not graceful like avian craft, but brutal, purposeful, unmistakably human. The first human fleet in history. The human ships did not arrive like saviors. They arrived like thunder. 37 vessels erupted from faster-than-light transit, each one heavy and angular, armored like brawlers who expected to take a beating and still stand tall. Their engines roared, their hulls bore scars, and their weapons gleamed with lethal intent. To the avians watching from burning cities below, they did not look like allies. They looked like monsters. But monsters were exactly what the Vorons had never faced. Ilias' battered fighter spun out of control, smoke pouring from the ruined engine. His vision blurred, hands locked on the useless stick. Lyra's voice rose above the alarms, frantic. "We're going to crash." Then a shadow crossed their cockpit. A massive human warship surged past, taking the brunt of the Dominion's fire. Its thick armor glowed red-hot, plates cracking, but it did not fall. "Earthbound to stray fighter," a calm voice said over comms. "Hang on, we've got you." A grappling beam locked onto their crippled ship, steadying their spin. Ilias blinked through the smoke, stunned. He had heard the voice of Captain Morrison only minutes before, but he had never imagined actually hearing another human again. Lyra clutched his arm, feathers trembling. "Ilias, they're like you." "Yeah," he breathed dazed. "They're us." The Voron flagship ignored them now. The Dominion's weapons swelled to full power, crimson light spilling across the sky. On the bridge of the New Horizon, Admiral Lisa Torres watched the energy spike climb. Her crew exchanged fearful glances. Everyone knew what was coming. "Ma'am," her tactical officer said, "if that thing fires." "I know," Torres' eyes narrowed. "Then we don't let it fire." She raised her voice to the fleet. "All ships battle stations. That weapon drops, aviator dies. We're not letting that happen. Bring it down." Human warships surged forward. They didn't form neat lines or precise wedges. They broke into chaotic packs, each captain choosing their own approach. To Voron eyes, it looked like madness. To humans, it was survival. The Voron fleet struck with the confidence of conquerors. Their formations were perfect, overlapping arcs of fire cutting through space like a blade. For centuries, this doctrine had crushed every foe. But the humans didn't play by their rules. Captain Morrison led the first charge. His ships plunged straight into the Voron formation, diving through gaps no sane commander would risk. Turrets spat fire in every direction, overlapping into a storm. Morrison's voice barked over comms. "Red Squadron, break and scatter. Don't give them targets." Fighters burst from hangars, darting between cruisers like hornets. They swarmed Voron ships in loose, chaotic spirals, never flying the same way twice. The Vorons fired back in disciplined volleys, but their beams passed through empty space. The humans never stayed where they were expected to be. Major Henderson's squadron pulled maneuvers so erratic the Vorons couldn't track them. Fighters rolled, looped, vanished into blind spots, then reappeared with missiles screaming. "These things don't fight like soldiers," a Voron commander snarled as his formation broke apart. "They're unpredictable." On the ground, Lieutenant Colonel Sam Rodriguez watched Voron dropships descend on Crystal Falls. He fought guerrilla wars on Earth, where every alley was a death trap and every ruined building a weapon. This battle felt no different. "All right, listen up," he shouted to his human troops huddled in the alien city's tunnels. "They've got armor, numbers, and clean doctrine. We've got dirt, chaos, and every unfair trick in the book. That makes us meaner. Let's go." Teams split, melting into the crystal architecture. The Vorons advanced in perfect formations, weapons gleaming, ready to crush resistance. They found empty streets. Then the ambush hit. Explosives detonated beneath their walkers. Snipers opened fire from crystal spires, vanishing before the enemy could respond. Small teams harried their flanks, striking and disappearing like ghosts. Rodriguez grinned savagely, voice sharp in his calm. "They're fighting by the book. Rip the damn book up." From the command center, Elder Zephys and the other Kithra leaders watched the chaos unfold on screens. Voron formations faltered under the relentless human assault. Harmony singer Lyra, still shaken from the fighter crash but alive inside the Earthbound's medbay, whispered in awe. "They don't fight like us. They don't even fight like the Vorons. They fight like..." "Wildfire," Zephys finished, his eyes wide. "Unpredictable, unstoppable, everywhere at once." The Council had expected predators. What they saw instead was something stranger, protectors who fought like predators. But victory was far from certain. The Dominion's planet killer still glowed, moments from firing. Every second counted. Admiral, Morrison's voice came over comms, tense. We've got one shot to overload that weapon. My fighters can punch through the escorts, but we'll need the big guns to break the shield. Tor's face hardened. Then that's what we'll do. The New Horizon surged forward, cannons blazing. Plasma seared against the Dominion's shields, each strike carving cracks across the shimmering barrier. Shields at 70%, Barnes, her tactical officer, shouted. Keep firing. Voron's concentrated fire on her flagship. The New Horizon shuddered, alarms shrieking. Hull breaches tore through decks. Ma'am, we can't hold this. We hold, Torres barked, her voice was steel. Because if we don't, nobody else will. Elias, barely conscious in the Earthbound's medbay, stirred as Lyra pressed her wing hand against his arm. You're hurt, she whispered. I'll live, he croaked. His eyes flicked to the monitor showing the Dominion's weapon. But if that thing fires, none of us will. Lyra's feathers flared, determination burning through her fear. Then we have to stop it. She turned to the nearest human officer. Get me to your admiral, I have an idea. On the Dominion, Warclaw Drathos stood on the bridge, towering above his officers. His black-scaled body gleamed in the weapon's crimson glow. His eyes burned with cruel certainty. The prey world will burn, he snarled. Let the galaxy see what happens when the weak call for help. Warclaw, one officer said hesitantly, the humans fight like nothing we have faced. Their tactics are the thrashings of desperate beasts, Drathos snapped. Let them thrash, it will make their end more satisfying. But even as he spoke, unease twisted in his chest. These humans were not breaking, not fleeing. They fought with a reckless fury that even the Voron Empire had never matched. And for the first time in centuries, Warclaw Drathos wondered if his empire had finally found an enemy it could not predict. On the New Horizon, Admiral Torres turned as the doors hissed open. Lyra stepped into the bridge, feathers singed but eyes blazing. You're the Aviante, Torres said sharply, the one who flew with Elias. Yes, Lyra said, breathless, and I know how to stop that weapon. The bridge fell silent. Lyra spread her wings, her voice carrying like a song of defiance. The Dominion's weapon isn't just energy, it resonates through harmonics. My people built the original relay technology they twisted into that gun. If we disrupt the frequency, it will collapse. Barnes frowned. That would take precision coding. We don't even understand their language. I do, Lyra said, her feathers shimmered with defiance. But I need your transmitters, your power, your courage. Torres studied her, an alien songbird offering to cripple the deadliest weapon in the galaxy. The Admiral nodded once. Do it. Lyra rushed to the console, wings fluttering. Her voice shifted into a rapid series of notes, harmonics spilling into the comm system. Human engineers worked beside her, translating, amplifying. The Dominion's weapon shuddered, energy faltering. Cracks of instability rippled across the crimson sphere. On the Voron bridge, alarms blared. Warclaw, the charge is destabilizing. Drathos's eyes blazed. Find the source, silence it. But it was too late. The sphere collapsed in on itself, detonating in a shockwave that rippled across space. The planet killer was gone. The humans erupted in cheers. The Kithra sang in relief. But Elias, lying in his medbay cot, forced himself upright, eyes narrowing. He knew better than to celebrate early. And he was right. Because the Dominion's hull split open, and something vast, hidden within, began to unfold. A second weapon, bigger, deadlier, not a planet killer, a fleet killer. The Dominion split open like a nightmare flower. Metal petals of armored plating folded back, exposing a massive structure buried in its core. Hundreds of segmented arms extended outward, glowing with dark energy. At its center, a sphere pulsed black and violet, radiating gravity waves that warped space itself. On the New Horizon's bridge, alarms screamed. Crew staggered as the ship's deck tilted, sensors struggling to lock onto the growing anomaly. Barnes' voice broke, trembling. Admiral, it's not energy-based, it's gravitational, a singularity projector. Tor's blood went cold, a fleet killer. The Vorons had built a weapon not to kill planets, but to crush armadas in one strike. On the Dominion, Warclaw Drathos spread his talons in satisfaction. Let the prey sing their last songs, he growled. This time no sabotage, fire the graviton core. The core pulsed, sending ripples across the void. Human ships lurched, their hulls groaning as space twisted. Several fighters were simply torn apart, stretched into ribbons of metal and fire. Morrison's voice crackled over fleet comms. "They've got us in a gravity well, engines straining just to hold position." "Hold together," Torres shouted. "Nobody breaks." But even as she said it, one of the smaller frigates buckled. Its spine cracked in half, tearing apart with a scream of twisting metal. The crew never had time to cry out. In the Earthbound's medbay, Elias braced himself as the deck shook violently. What the hell is happening out there? A medic strapped him down. "Gravity weapon, they're trying to crush us alive." Elias growled, ripping the straps free. His whole body screamed with pain, but he forced himself upright. "Then we don't let them." Lyra's voice came over comms, high and strained from the New Horizon. "Elias, they're collapsing the fleet. Your ships cannot hold much longer." Elias staggered toward the hatch. "Then we make them stop." On the New Horizon, Lyra's talons danced across the console, her voice rising in harmonic bursts. "They've layered the graviton projector with resonant dampeners. I cannot collapse it like before." "Options," Torres barked. Barnes shook his head. "We could overload it, but we'd have to hit it with something massive, a reactor, a whole ship." Silence fell. Everyone understood what that meant. Lyra's feathers trembled. "You're asking someone to sacrifice their crew." "No," Torres said grimly. "I'm asking them to save everyone else." Rodriguez's ground forces heard the order. They weren't even in space, but the gravitational pulses rippled across the city, collapsing towers into dust. His troops huddled in the crystal tunnels as buildings groaned and cracked above them. One of his sergeants swore, "If that thing fires again, this whole planet's toast, sir." Rodriguez clenched his jaw. "Then we get loud enough up here that the lizards have to look down instead of up." He signaled his forces. "Hit every Voran unit in the city. Make them bleed, make them panic. If we're going down swinging." Above, the battle raged. Human ships fired desperately, pounding the Dominion's shields, but their weapons barely scratched the massive warship. The graviton core pulsed again, warping entire formations. 3 destroyers collided, torn apart in the twisting tide. Morrison's fighters screamed across the Dominion's hull, firing at turrets, missiles blazing. "Admiral, we can't keep this up." Tor's fists clenched white. She wanted to order a retreat, but retreat meant the Kithra died. And so did every human ship already caught in the well. "Admiral," Barnes said quietly, "the Earthbound, its core is unstable from battle damage if it rammed the graviton projector." Torres froze. "The Earthbound, Morrison's ship." Her throat tightened. On the Dominion's bridge, Warclaw Drathos bared his fangs as the weapon built toward full discharge. "Witness the power of order," he growled. "Witness the end of chaos." But his eyes flicked to the sensors, where small human ships darted like hornets, striking at every vulnerable seam. Their movements made no tactical sense, yet they shredded escorts, crippled defenses, and refused to die. "They're mad," his officer muttered. "No," Drathos said softly, uneasily. "They're human." On the Earthbound, Morrison's crew struggled to keep systems online. Sparks rained from shattered conduits. Half the hull glowed from enemy fire. Amy Walsh, the comms officer, turned pale. "Captain, New Horizon just transmitted a strike vector straight into the graviton core." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood. Morrison stared at the vector, at the impossible odds. Then he thought of Lisa back on Earth, his daughter, her laugh, her drawings on the fridge. He closed his eyes. "Captain," Walsh whispered. Morrison's eyes opened, hard and steady. "Plot the course." Gasps filled the bridge. "Sir, we don't get to pick the fights we want," Morrison said quietly. "Only the ones that matter, and this one matters." But before the Earthbound could move, Elias' voice cut through comms. "Negative, Earthbound. Hold your damn position." Torres frowned, confused. "Elias, you're in no shape." "Don't care," his voice was ragged but fierce. "You need a reactor shoved down that monster's throat? Fine, I'll do it." Everyone on the channel froze. Elias Ward, broken human outsider, survivor of too many wars, was volunteering to end this battle alone. Lyra's voice broke over comms. "Elias, no, you'll die." He gave a weak chuckle. "Yeah, but if I don't, so will you." Elias staggered into the hangar, body screaming with pain. Mechanics tried to stop him, but he shoved past. He climbed into another fighter, a relic barely held together. He didn't need it to last long. The plan was simple. Insane, but simple. He'd overload its reactor, slam it into the graviton core, and hope the blast destabilized the weapon before it fired. As he powered up, Lyra's voice came again, trembling. "Elias, please don't do this alone." He smiled faintly, wouldn't have it any other way. The fighter launched. The graviton core pulsed again, dragging ships toward annihilation. The Dominion loomed, weapon charging to full capacity. Elias' fighter blazed through the chaos, alarms shrieking. Plasma ripped past him, shields burned out, hull plates peeled away. But he kept flying. "Target lock," he whispered. His hands trembled, the reactor core overloaded, red lights flashing. The Dominion's weapon pulsed brighter, seconds left. "Tell my daughter," Morrison's voice whispered faintly over comms. "No," Elias growled, "tell her yourself." And he dove. The overloaded fighter screamed into the core, only for a Kithra civilian ship to streak across his path. Elias' eyes widened. No. The transport slammed into the graviton projector first. Its entire frame vaporized in a blinding flash, the core cracking apart. The weapon collapsed in a catastrophic implosion, tearing half the Dominion's hull away. Shockwaves hurled ships in every direction. The Dominion staggered, crippled but not destroyed. Elias' fighter spun out of control, battered by the blast. He barely managed to steady it, gasping in disbelief. They had sacrificed themselves, the very people he had come to save. On the Dominion, Drathos staggered as his bridge shuddered. Half his crew lay dead, consoles blazing with sparks. He stared at the ruined core, eyes wide. The prey threw themselves into the fire. For the first time in his long career, Warclaw Drathos felt something alien in his chest. Doubt. On the new horizon, Tor stared at the sensor feed, stunned. "They rammed it, civilians, they," her voice broke. Lyra's feathers quivered, tears welled in her eyes. "They protected us." Elias' voice rasped weakly over comms. "The people we came to save just saved us." Silence fell across every channel. Humans and Kithra alike realized what had just happened. Something had shifted. The prey were no longer just prey. But before relief could settle, Barnes' voice cracked. "Admiral, new contacts inbound, big ones." The tactical screen lit up. Another Voran fleet had arrived, twice the size of the first. And at their head, a ship larger than anything humanity had ever seen. The void shook with thunder. The Voran reinforcements emerged from faster-than-light space in perfect formation, their silhouettes blotting out the stars. Nearly 400 warships, each bristling with weapons. But all eyes turned to the behemoth at their center, a vessel so massive it dwarfed the Dominion. It was shaped like a black spear, 1,000 kilometers long, its hull plated with layers of living metal that shifted like scales. Great spines jutted from its sides, each glowing with the energy of planet-killer cannons. Its engines burned with sickly green light, warping the space around it. The Vorans called it the Eternal Fang. On the New Horizons bridge, the crew went silent. Even seasoned officers stared with pale faces. Barnes whispered, "That's not a ship, that's a damn continent with guns." Lyra's feathers flattened in terror. The Fang is their pride, a dreadnought of dreadnoughts. It has never been defeated. Admiral Torres stood tall, but her throat tightened. She'd seen impossible odds before, but this felt like staring at the embodiment of doom itself. On the Eternal Fang's bridge, Warclaw Drathos limped to his command throne. His scales were scorched, his armor cracked from the Dominion's near destruction, but his eyes burned with rage. He looked up at the towering figure who commanded the Fang, a Voran so massive he seemed carved from obsidian cliffs. High Warclaw Malachar, supreme commander of the Voran fleets. Drathos bowed his head. "The humans are chaos incarnate. They ruined the graviton core. The prey fought beside them." Malachar's voice was low and crushing, like stone grinding mountains. "Then you failed." Drathos bared his fangs. "They are not prey, my lord, they." Malachar seized him by the throat, lifting him with one clawed hand. Drathos choked as his talons scrabbled against Malachar's iron grip. "Do not speak that word," Malachar growled. "Prey remains prey, and prey dies." He snapped Drathos' neck and tossed his body aside. "Prepare the Fang," Malachar commanded. "We end this." On the Kithra homeworld, tremors rocked the crystal towers as alien civilians watched the Fang eclipse the horizon in orbit. Their songs of mourning had already begun, voices trembling across the harmony chambers. Elder Zephas listened, his chest heavy. "It is the end. Even the humans cannot fight this." Beside him, young Tesha clenched her feathers tight, eyes blazing. "Elder, no. They said once that predators choose how to use their fangs, so do we." Zephas turned, startled by the fire in her voice. She pointed at the screens showing the human ships, scarred, battered, but holding formation. "They came for us, now we fight with them." On the surface, Rodriguez's ground forces dug in as Voran dropships blackened the skies again. His soldiers, bloodied but unbroken, braced their weapons. Brooks muttered, "Sir, that's way too many." Rodriguez spat into the dirt. "Good, easier to hit." The Vorans landed in flawless formation, armored legions marching with the thunder of inevitability. Their heavy walkers lumbered forward, weapons glowing. Rodriguez keyed his comm. "Crystal Falls units, you know the drill. Tunnels, rooftops, hit and run, make every damn street cost them blood." Above the city, Kithra civilians broadcast harmonic waves to jam Voran sensors, their voices trembling but strong. For the first time, they weren't just hiding. They were fighting. In orbit, Tors summoned her officers. The tactical display filled the room, showing their ragged fleet compared to the massive Voran armada. Barnes said grimly, "We've got maybe 60 combat-ready ships left. They've got 400, and that beast." "Retreat is not an option," Tors said. "If the Fang fires on this planet, it's over." Silence, everyone knew she was right. Then Lyra spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Then we fight like humans, unpredictable, united, wildfire against the storm." Tors nodded slowly. "Exactly. Every specialist we've got, every trick we know. We don't fight them where they're strong, we fight them everywhere else." The humans moved. The Arctic specialists maneuvered their ships to the outer orbit, releasing cryogenic warheads. Vast clouds of supercooled gas formed, freezing Voran sensors and slowing their formations. The desert fighters unleashed heat-based weapons, turning frozen warships brittle before shattering them with pinpoint strikes. The ocean veterans treated the void like a sea, using three-dimensional movement to weave through enemy ranks, striking from below where shields were weakest. The mountain troops unleashed kinetic rods from high orbit, piercing Voran armor with sheer velocity. Each group acted independently, yet supported one another instinctively, weaving chaos into devastating synergy. The Fang's escorts began to crumble. On the Eternal Fang, Malachar snarled as red icons bloomed across his tactical display. "They fight like vermin, disorganized, uncivilized." His officer's voice cracked, "And yet they are winning skirmishes." Malachar slammed his claw on the console. "Then burn the vermin, bring the Fang's main weapon online." The dreadnought's spines lit with terrible energy, space warped, the planet trembled. On the new horizon, Barnes shouted, "Admiral, it's charging, power readings off the charts." Tor's gut twisted. One shot from that thing would glass the planet. "Options," she demanded. Lyra's voice rose in desperation. "Its spines resonate at a harmonic frequency if we disrupt the resonance." "How?" "By singing louder." Everyone stared at her. Lyra spread her wings, feathers trembling. "Our people are singers. If every Kithra voice harmonizes at once, we can throw its weapon out of sync. But we will need amplification, human technology." Tors didn't hesitate. "Patch them through every ship, every comm, every relay. If singing can jam their gun, then damn it, we're going to sing." Across the planet, every Kithra raised their voices. Crystalline cities thrummed as millions of beings sang in unison, a rising chorus that shook the ground. Human ships broadcast the song into orbit, amplifying it with transmitters, turning the void itself into a speaker. The Eternal Fang's weapon began to waver, its resonance trembling under the weight of alien voices. Malachar roared, "Silence them." Voran ships targeted the cities, bombarding them mercilessly. Crystals shattered, towers fell, and voices screamed, but the song did not stop. Rodriguez saw the bombardment. He turned to his troops, rage burning in his chest. They want to silence the song over our dead bodies. His forces surged from the tunnels, ambushing Voran artillery. Explosions lit the streets as humans fought like demons, their ferocity buying precious minutes. Brooks screamed over the comm, "They're still singing, sir, they're still." A blast cut him off. Rodriguez clenched his rifle tighter. "Then we sing with them." And as he reloaded, he began to hum, a rough, low human tune. His troops picked it up, voices ragged but steady, mixing with the Kithra chorus. In orbit, Elias sat slumped in his fighter, barely conscious. But when he heard the voices on comms, the harmony of two species singing for survival, he forced his eyes open. "Not bad," he whispered hoarsely. And then, broken ribs screaming, he added his own voice to the chorus. The resonance shattered. The Fang's weapon overloaded, its spines flickering out, sparks blazing across its titanic hull. The dreadnought staggered in space, momentarily disarmed. Cheers erupted across the fleet. Humans and Kithra shouted in triumph. But the celebration died as new readings appeared. Barnes' face went pale. "Admiral, they're diverting power. The Fang has another weapon, a core detonation array. They're not targeting the planet, they're targeting the star." Everyone froze. Lyra's feathers fell flat. If they collapse the star, this entire system dies. Tor's heart hammered. She thought the Fang was a superweapon. She hadn't realized it was an executioner of suns. The screen blazed with new energy signatures. The eternal Fang was about to kill the star itself. The star trembled. On every scanner, its readings spiked erratically. Great magnetic loops whipped across its surface, lashing into space like titanic whips of plasma. The eternal Fang loomed, its spines crackling with power as it redirected energy into the heart of the system. Barnes' voice cracked on the New Horizons bridge. "Admiral, they're destabilizing the stellar core. If they succeed, this sun will collapse into a singularity. Everything within 10 light minutes, planet, ships, all of us, will be gone." The crew stared in silence. Even Tors felt her knees weaken. She'd faced many battles, but never a weapon aimed not at soldiers or ships, but at creation itself. Lyra's feathers quivered with terror. "Admiral, this is their ultimate doctrine. If they cannot rule, they annihilate, order through extinction." Tors forced her hands to steady. "Not on my watch. Ideas now." The room erupted in frantic voices. Barnes suggested bombardment of the spines. Others argued for kamikaze runs. Lyra spoke of harmonic interference, but the Fang's shielding was too dense. Then Elias' rasp cut through the chaos, his voice patched from his failing fighter. "Hit the star." Everyone froze. Tors frowned. "Repeat that." Elias coughed wetly, his breath ragged. "Don't hit the Fang, hit the star, push it the other way, make it flare, not collapse." Barnes swore. "That's insane. Triggering a flare would burn half the fleet alive." "Better burned than swallowed by a black hole," Elias snapped. "You want to stop them, use the star itself." Tors stared at the display. Elias was reckless, broken, barely alive, but he was right. If they could force a massive solar eruption, it might disrupt the Fang's array long enough to stop the collapse. "Could it work?" she asked. Lyra tilted her head, eyes wide. "If you amplify the star's song, yes. The resonance could shift from collapse to eruption, but the energy required." Tors clenched her jaw. "We'll find it." Orders flew across the fleet. The Arctic specialists prepared cryobombs to supercool solar spots. Desert fighters readied heat lances to overload magnetic fields. Ocean veterans deployed drones to dive directly into the star's corona, measuring instability. Mountain forces armed kinetic warheads to slam into vulnerable regions. Every ship, every soldier, every specialist had a role. And at the center of it all, humans and Kithra would sing again, this time not to disrupt a weapon, but to rouse a star. On the eternal Fang, Malachar watched the readings climb. His officers chittered nervously. "My lord, their ships, they are firing into the star." Malachar's lips curled into mockery. "Fools, they hasten their own end." Yet doubt flickered at the edge of his mind. Humans had turned chaos into strategy before. Still, he growled, "Let them struggle. When the core collapses, their screams will echo across eternity." The operation began. Ships dove dangerously close to the star, hulls glowing as shields strained against the radiation. Cryobombs detonated, freezing solar spots into brittle fractures. Heat lances drilled magnetic veins until they snapped and whipped back, flaring arcs across the surface. The ocean drones plunged into the corona, broadcasting real-time instability data. Mountain warheads plunged deep into fractured zones, hammering the rhythms of collapse into disharmony. And then the voices began. Across the Kithra cities, millions sang once more, despite bombardments, despite ruins, despite fear. Their harmony was no longer just one of sorrow, but of defiance, resonating with the rhythm of the sun itself. Humans joined in, voices harsh and raw but strong. Songs of earth, ancient chants, lullabies, battle hymns mingled with alien harmony. Cracked speakers on battered ships echoed their voices into space. It was a chorus of two worlds daring a star to live. The star shuddered. Its surface flared with sudden violence, solar winds lashing out in blazing ribbons. The eternal fang's arrays flickered, destabilized by the eruption. Cheers rose across the fleet. Barnes yelled, "Admiral, it's working. They're losing control of the collapse." Tors gripped the railing. "Keep the pressure on, don't let them regain balance." On the Fang, alarms howled. Malachar snarled as his crew reported the disruption. "Counter their interference, increase array output." "But High Warclaw," one officer protested, "the resonance is unstable if we force it harder." Malachar crushed him with one swipe of his claw. "Do it, or die anyway." The Fang's arrays glowed brighter, ripping energy from the star, pushing against the eruption. The sun screamed. It wasn't metaphor, it was sound. Across every comm system, every speaker, a low vibration shuddered. The star's song mixed with human and Kithra voices, a deafening, living roar. The eruption intensified, but so did the collapse. The star stood at a knife's edge, wavering between rebirth and death. In his fighter, Elias coughed blood, vision blurring. He saw the readings spiking, saw the Fang holding fast, saw the star tearing itself apart. And he understood. It needed one more push. His push. He opened comms. "Admiral, Lyra, everyone, I've got one more trick left." Tor's voice snapped back. "Elias, no, you've done enough." "Not yet," he smiled faintly through cracked lips. "That relic I'm flying, its reactor's cooked. If I dive it into the corona and blow it, right where the fractures are weakest, I can give the star the nudge it needs." Lyra's voice broke. "Elias, you'll never survive." He chuckled weakly. "Not planning to, but if the sun lives, maybe the rest of you will too." Tor's chest ached. She wanted to order him to stop, wanted to pull him back. But she saw her crew's faces, saw the Kithra cities below, saw millions of lives depending on one last act. She swallowed hard. "Godspeed, Elias Ward." Lyra's voice trembled across the channel. "Elias, please don't go alone. Let us sing for you at least." He smiled, tears in his eyes. Wouldn't want it any other way. He angled his fighter down, nose glowing as it skimmed the star's atmosphere. The corona seared his hull, alarms shrieking. His skin blistered from the radiation, but he kept going. And all across the fleet, humans and Kithra raised their voices louder, singing him into the fire. The Fang's arrays built to critical. The star's core reached tipping point. Elias whispered, "For family." He overloaded the reactor. The fighter became a sunburst. The detonation tore into the fractures, triggering a chain reaction. The star convulsed, not in collapse, but in release. A titanic solar flare erupted outward, lashing into the Fang. The wave ripped across the Voran dreadnought's shields, overwhelming them. Hull plating peeled away like paper, spines shattered, entire decks vaporized. The eternal Fang staggered, crippled under the fury of the very star it had tried to enslave. On the new horizon, alarms blared as the flare swept across the fleet. Shields flared, ships buckled, but they held. Barnes screamed, "The Fang's down, they can't maintain the array." Tors gripped the console, tears stinging her eyes. He did it. Elias did it. Lyra collapsed to her knees, sobbing, her feathers trembling. He sang the star awake. But victory was not yet certain. The Fang, though broken, still lived. Its engines glowed weakly, dragging it out of the flare. Hundreds of Voran ships still swarmed, regrouping under their shattered flagship. Malachar stood on his ruined bridge, one eye burned blind, scales scorched, but still unbowed. "Fall back," his officer whispered. Malachar growled, "No. If the sun will not be ours, then let this battle drown in blood. Signal all ships, total annihilation." The sun blazed with fresh fury, its surface scarred from the flare. The eternal fang reeled in orbit, half its hull slagged, its mighty spine snapped, yet it did not fall. And neither did the Voran fleet. Hundreds of warships regrouped around their crippled dreadnought, rallying to Malachar's command. On the New Horizons bridge, Admiral Tor stared at the tactical display. She saw the truth. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and leaderless now that Ilias was gone. Her crew waited, silent, watching her. Tor's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to weep, to rage at the universe. But she stood tall instead, her voice steady. "We're not done yet." In the Fang's throne chamber, High Warclaw Malachar towered over his scorched bridge crew. One eye burned out, his scales cracked, but his will unbroken. He snarled, "Signal all ships. Kill them all. If we cannot break them with power, we will bury them in corpses." His fleet surged forward, a tide of black warships against the battered humans and their fragile allies. On the Kithra homeworld, Elder Zephys watched the skies darken with Voran formations. His feathers drooped with despair. "They will slaughter us. The humans cannot hold against such numbers." But Tesha stepped forward, her voice fierce. "Then we fight with them, not as prey, not as spectators, as family." She spread her wings, raising her voice across the Harmony channels. "All Kithra ships, civilian or not, rise. If you can fly, you can fight. The humans bleed for us. Now we bleed for them." One by one, transports, shuttles, research vessels, even crystal barges lifted into the sky. A ragtag fleet, unarmed but unyielding. Tor's sensors lit up. Hundreds of Kithra ships rose into orbit, moving to join her battered forces. Barnes gaped. "They don't even have weapons." Lyra's voice trembled with pride. "They have something better, they have us." Tor's smiled grimly. "Then let's show the Vorans what happens when prey fights like predators." The final battle began. The Voran fleet surged forward in perfect formation, a tidal wave of fire and steel. But the humans did not meet them head-on. Instead, they fractured into dozens of independent strike groups. Arctic specialists froze enemy engines, desert fighters burned through weakened armor, ocean veterans struck from impossible angles, mountain troops hammered with kinetic bombardments. And the Kithra joined in. Unarmed ships rammed Voran frigates, overloaded engines to blind sensors, even sang harmonic bursts that scrambled enemy targeting. Chaos consumed the battlefield. Rodriguez led his ground forces through Crystal Falls, now a battlefield of flame and shattered crystal. Voran infantry advanced relentlessly, but the humans and Kithra civilians fought back with guerrilla ferocity. Snipers hid in spires, children ferried ammunition through tunnels, tree-like Sylvani entangled Voran armor with living roots. Rodriguez barked into his comm. "Sector 7 holding, barely. Anyone with ammo, get it here now." From a side street, Tesha appeared with a group of young Kithra dragging salvaged Voran rifles. She tossed one to Rodriguez, eyes blazing. "We will not be silent anymore," she said. Rodriguez grinned fiercely. "That's the spirit." In orbit, the New Horizon dueled with a Voran cruiser twice its size. Shields flared, hull groaned, but Tor's crew fought like demons. Barnes yelled, "They're trying to flank us." Tor's barked, "Then let's flank them first." She spun her ship through a suicidal maneuver, diving under the cruiser's belly and unloading every missile they had left. The Voran ship split apart in a chain of fire. Her crew roared with triumph. But Malachar's dreadnought still loomed, its weapons regaining strength. On the Fang, Malachar's fury boiled. "Enough, target the human flagship, tear it from the sky." Massive cannons rotated, locking onto the New Horizon. Lyra felt it before sensors confirmed, a cold dread in her feathers. She turned to Tor's, her voice breaking. "They're targeting us. The Fang is going to finish it." Tor's stared at the massive ship, too big to destroy, too strong to outlast. "Unless..." She opened fleet comms. "All ships, this is Admiral Tor's. We can't kill that monster alone. But together we can bring it down. This is the last stand, for the Kithra, for Ilias, for every voice they tried to silence." The humans answered. Fighters streaked toward the Fang, missiles blazing. Bombers dove through its shields, hammering spines and engines. The Kithra answered. Civilian ships hurled themselves like spears, tearing into its flanks. Voices rose in harmony, blasting confusion into Voran comms. The Fangs staggered under the onslaught. Malachar roared, refusing to believe. This is not order, this is chaos. He slammed his claw on the console. If we are to die, then I will kill them myself. He rerouted all power into the Fang's central core. The dreadnought glowed with apocalyptic energy, preparing a final, suicidal blast. On the new horizon, Barnes paled. Admiral, it's overloading. They're going to detonate. That ship will take half the system with it. Tors froze. If the Fang exploded, nothing would survive. Lyra whispered, "What do we do?" And then Tors saw it. The Fang's core was glowing in harmonic resonance, the same kind Ilias had broken with song. Her eyes widened. "We sing," she said. Orders flew. Every Kithra, every human, every ship sing into the void. Sing louder than fear. The harmony rose. Millions of voices across a planet and a fleet, blending into one impossible chorus. Ancient Kithra songs of peace, human battle hymns, children's lullabies, cries of defiance. It shook the stars. The Fang's core wavered, destabilized by the resonance. Energy built wildly, uncontrolled. Malachar bellowed in rage. "No, I will not be undone by prey and vermin." But the Fang trembled, its power turning inward. And then it imploded. The eternal Fang collapsed into itself, torn apart by the very harmony it had tried to silence. The explosion ripped across the void, shattering Voran formations. Survivors fled, scattered, broken. The battle was over. Silence fell. On the new horizon, smoke filled the bridge, alarms fatting. Tors slumped into her chair, exhaustion washing over her. Barnes whispered, we won." Lyra's feathers glistened with tears. "No, we survived, thanks to Ilias." Tors closed her eyes, picturing the scarred man's final smile. "And thanks to all of us, together." Days later, the Kithra cities began to rebuild. Crystals sang again, this time with human voices woven into their harmony. Rodriguez walked through the streets of Crystal Falls, battered but alive. Children ran past him, some Kithra, some human. Tesha followed, feathers bright with pride. She looked up at him. "You said humans fight to protect family. Are we family now?" Rodriguez smiled wearily. "Yeah, kid, you are." In the great harmony chamber, Elder Zephas stood beside Admiral Tors. The surviving leaders of both species gathered, voices heavy with hope and grief. Zephas lifted his hand. "When we called for friends, we expected sympathy. Instead, the stars sent us guardians, humans, fierce, flawed, terrifying, and beautiful." Tors bowed her head. "We're not perfect, but we'll stand with you always." Zephas smiled softly. "Then let this be the beginning of something new, not prey and predator, not weak and strong, family." Above, the sky cleared. The sun shone bright, saved from collapse, and orbiting it were ships of two peoples who had chosen to fight side by side. The galaxy would remember this day, the day prey rose with predators, the day humans proved that compassion was stronger than conquest. The day guardians stood among the stars. Epilogue. In the ruins of the eternal Fang, drifting beyond recovery, a faint signal pulsed. A Voran distress beacon. And within it, a single promise from a dying High Worklow Malachar. This is not the end. Order will rise again, and when it does, humanity will fall. But for now, the stars belong to family.